Already in the Elite Eight, we have an 11 seed and 2 9 seeds. Is this good for the tournament to have all these low-seeded teams left, Stephen A?
No. And listen, I'm not trying to say that it's not good to have a Cinderella. I'm saying when there's several of them, it's problematic for the game. Because listen, there's a marquee for a reason. There are billboards and jumbotrons for a reason. There are tickers circulating around Madison Square Garden and the Madison Square Gardens of the basketball world for a reason. Because when you have marquee, when you have individuals to market, that heightens and elevates the suspense of it all. Again, I want to emphasize, I am not totally against Cinderellas. Cinderellas are great. That's what makes March Madness fantastic. I'm not saying that you don't want them at all. I'm saying the abundance of them at the expense of the powerhouses is when it becomes a problem. If you got Butler sneaking into the Final Four years ago and they're going up against the Dukes of North Carolinas or something like that, we get all of that. And, of course, Duke still exists. Kansas still exists. Villanova still exists. We get all of that. But when you see an abundance of dudes, the Nevadas against the Loyolas of Chicago or whatever the case may be, I think the more you see of that, the more it highlights what the game is lacking in terms of marquee talent, because you're thinking about folks that are on the NBA level that you would prefer to see in college. I'm not talking about one of them. I'm talking about when there are several of them, I don't think that's a good thing for the college basketball game.
You would be right if it was all David versus David. You want David versus Goliath, Stephen A.
Right.
And so Loyola and Nevada, I understand, although I found that interesting. Look, Cinderella versus Cinderella, which one is going to win? That was still interesting. But look at the way this is breaking down. On one side of the bracket, you're talking Florida State, Kansas State, Loyola, right? On the other side of the bracket, Nova, Kansas, Duke. I mean, it's not just that you have plenty of blue bloods left. It's that they're on one side of the bracket by and large, and you know, Goliath and David's on the other side of the bracket, meaning as this plays out, it's not certain, of course, but there's a very good chance. The odds are in the favor of David versus Goliath in the finals. That is exactly what you want. So maybe it's partly just luck that it's worked out this way with the brackets, but so far it has. And I love it. It's great for the game.
Are you guys calling Florida State and Michigan Cinderella? Because you could end up with either Florida State or Michigan, Villanova and Kansas or Duke. Those aren't Cinderella, all right? Yes, Loyola is Cinderella. There's no doubt about it. You know, just that the upper part of that bracket, you know, is going to be an anomaly. But we're not going to really have Cinderella. You're talking about an ACC team, a Big Ten team, a team that won the Big Ten tournament. Florida State, a team with a bunch of pros. So your 3 of the 4 are probably going to end up programs that, you know what, are at the very highest level. And, you know, that's good for college basketball. I go back to the NASCAR concept. You're going to watch those guys go round and round. You want to see your blue bloods win, but you want to see a couple crashes.
Hey, Coach.
We had a crash in the South. That's just the way it is. So that's good. And the other thing is good. Different styles of basketball, different ways to build programs. It just shows you can have transfers and win. You can have a defensive-oriented team that can win. I mean, Kansas State in the Big 12
let me get at you.
and Loyola, that's not the worst thing in the world when you look at what else is going to be in the tournament.
31 wins this year, by the way.
Coach, let me get on you for a second, Coach,
Sure.
because I must confess, you know you're my man. I love you, but you get on my nerves sometimes, and I say that affectionately. And I'm going to tell you why you get. I'm going to tell you why you get on my nerves, because you know what the truth is here. First, obviously, there are teams that are still playing that exist. We're just talking about the overall premise. Let's face reality. Loyola Chicago is a nice story, but I don't want to see them against Kansas State. I want to see them against somebody else. I want something like that. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about the popularity of the sport, let me tell you something right now. Seth Greenberg knows his basketball. But even though he knows his basketball, and I believe you can coach, one of the greatest reasons that people need to look at you is because we've learned that you got a great personality, too, that can really with a younger generation of players. If I'm a program, I'm looking at Seth Greenberg right now because I love what I see from him on ESPN. What I'm saying is when you watch college basketball, damn it, don't you remember Lou Carnesecca? Don't you remember John Thompson? Don't you still see Jim Boeheim? Don't you miss Bobby Knight a little bit? Don't you look at and Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams and then some of the players that they recruit. John Calipari, for example, his personality, as much as it's getting on my nerves because the message has gotten old and he needs to modify it a little bit, I still love the man dearly and I want to see him. What I'm saying is these things that contribute to selling the game of college basketball, I don't believe that a bunch of Cinderellas you should favor that compromising, that marquee. And I'm not saying it's actually happening. I'm saying that's not what we should wish for. Sure, we want some of them to sift in there, but we want those marquee names too, because marquee sells with anything. And First Take is a perfect example of it, because your boy is right here on First Take. That's why we sell, baby. That's why we sell.
And you don't even have to wear a tie.
And damn sure ain't because of that rookie hosting the show. I can tell you that.
That's an overpriced. I understand where that shot came from because Lord knows you're not overpriced. You're the star of the show. You're the star of the network, my friend.